and welcome to the podcast where friends discuss environmental policies from around the planet.
Hello and welcome back to Series 3. I'm Mantra and I'm joined here with Ala.
Hey!
How are you, girl?
I am doing good. I know I always say that, but you guys, today I'm really doing good because Ronaldo. That is why.
Oh, this bitch.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing fantastic.
We know. Trust me, guys, I had to listen to it all day.
It's important.
It is, apparently. Anyway, we are back with our Series 3, which is story time. And we are back with another story. This time we are discussing something even more horrendous than what we discussed the last time. Aren't we just a big ray of sunshine, Allah?
I know. This is my favorite thing to do.
Tell you about the gloom around this world. We would love to hear about any other glooms that you would like to make us aware about, and we can talk to you about it. Maybe even make an extra policy. So send in your ideas on social media.
Yep.
Before we get into this episode, let us talk about what we may have set off, Allah. Let's not completely take away blame from it. In one of our extra policies, we said Hawaii is a great place to travel to. They really prioritize ecotourism. It is great. But please stop going to Hawaii. Like, calm down. So in July, all fully vaccinated travelers from the US were invited to skip quarantine and the pre-flight testing to Hawaii. Now, of course, this led to a lot of people flying in. About 35,000 tourists each day for the first 3 days of its summer.
They were all over Instagram, like the influencers and stuff. I just saw one with the other day where she was bitching and moaning about how they weren't giving her good customer service and being nice to her.
Yeah, I mean, they have hospitality worker shortages, okay? Their roads are congested. They literally have 90-minute restaurant waiting times. And these are just like some of the problems that the state is trying to really navigate through this summer. You know, one mayor actually went so far to actually ask airlines to please assist the state by decreasing the number of flights incoming. But, you know, he's just like, man, we're just asking for a pause, man, if you want to use that term. Nothing too serious, but please.
Yeah.
It's been quite a fun ride for Hawaiians. Please reconsider your travel destinations. Honestly, reconsider your travel plans. We are hitting the fourth wave. It is not fun.
No, it's just a lot. And not to mention they're running out of ICU beds. Bruh, just cut them some slack. Although they kind of did this, well, I'm not going to say that, but the government should have maybe had a better strategy going in. But now they're asking you guys to just calm it a little bit. So let's help Hawaii out.
So, back to this episode. Today we are talking about, drumroll please, dun dun dun.
Dum dum dum.
Bhopal. Bhopal is something that Ala and I both really drool over. No, that's not probably the nice term. But it's true, we get really excited about it. Especially because of the way that it highlighted what industrial negligence on such a massive scale can do.
And to be clear, guys, we're not happy that it happened. We are fascinated by the series of clusterfucks that led to this situation. By the sheer incompetence, we just can't understand it.
The colossal damage that it caused, it was insane. I'm going to give the floor to Ala. I'm going to give you guys a little bit about what happened. There was a chemical spill that happened in one of the pesticide factories in the city of Bhopal, which is in India. It was India's first major industrial disaster, and at least 30 tons of methyl isocyanate gas was released, and it killed between 15 to 20,000 people. And it affected over 600,000 workers. It is probably known as the world's worst industrial disaster. Well, it is also the reason why I chose chemical engineering. I think I said that before sometime. Because I saw this and I realized about industrial safety. Ala, the floor is yours, girl.
Yes, it is. So first, I feel like you have to have a background of where Bhopal is. It's a city in central India, and it's the capital of Madhya Pradesh. And it's 360 miles south of the Indian capital. So today, about 2.6 million people live there, which is crazy considering everything that happened. And it's basically was like an old city built first as Bhopal by this King Boj sometime in the 1000s. And then an emperor's soldier founded current Bhopal in 1770. So it has been there for a long time. And although it's like a smaller kingdom, it survived several wars. It became a princely state in British India in 1818, which let's not even get into that.
Colonialism joke, guys.
Yeah. So at the time of this incident, which happened in 1984, there were 850,000 people living there. And 500,000 people were exposed to those deadly chemicals, estimatedly, about. The district like has an area of about like 2,700 square kilometers, and in that 350 is urban, 2,400 is rural. So it's a pretty agrarian area, and so they really depend on the land to flourish, which is important for you to know just because of everything that happens to it. And another important thing to know about Bhopal was that when this happened in 1984, there weren't a lot of hospitals. There were like 2 major government hospitals, and they were not prepared for more than half of the population to need medical help, which ends up being a problem in this story. So now, let's talk about what happened. Like everything else that becomes a disaster caused by human beings, this whole thing started with money. Can you believe it?
Oh no, so surprising.
Exactly. So in the late 60s, the Indian government initiated policies to encourage foreign companies to come invest in the local industry. Union Carbide Corporation, which it was based in Virginia, was asked to build a plant to manufacture Sevin, which is a pesticide, and it was very common in Asia in the 1970s.
Oh, is it like a harmful substance? And is it like still used in Asia or anywhere in the world, or was it just restricted to the 70s?
That's a great question. So Sevin is toxic, yes. And you have to be really careful when you use it. You have to wear gloves, and it's advised that you use a mask. In fact, the people who manufacture Sevin will usually write on there that you have to wait at least 3 to 14 days before eating vegetables that have been sprayed with Sevin because of its half-life of its ingredients. In fact, one of its main ingredients is carbaryl, which is like super bad for you, but we're going to talk about how bad it is for you.
Oh, so everything is really bad. Great, cool.
Yeah, it was not great. Not to mention, like, yeah, it's still used in different parts of the world. Like, it's still around. They've tried to change it a lot. It's especially used in developing nations, which, not great, but yes, it is. So as part of this deal that the Indian government made, they also invested a lot, the government themselves, but they had the local shareholders invest too. So these people invested in the thing and the company that you will see later on ended up really fucking screwing them. Not great. So the company built the plant over there in Bhopal because they were like, it's in the center, it's close to the capital, it's on a good transport route. But the thing about that area is that it was zoned for like light industrial and commercial use. It was not zoned for hazardous industry just because of how winds move around there. So because of that zoning law, when it was initially approved, they only approved it to be for making the pesticides from component chemicals. And what that means is they were supposed to ship the methyl isocyanates, MIC, from their parent company here in Virginia in small batches.
Oh, so the initial facility was not supposed to have any hazardous material.
I mean, like, it was supposed to have, like, some, but not a large quantity. And the only reason it did is because there was, of course, it's, you know, like companies, you have to be the one to make the profit. So they were feeling all this pressure from the competition, and they decided to use backward integration, where you're manufacturing the raw materials and the intermediate products to make the final product in one facility. And in this case, it was super dangerous. They couldn't manage it. They couldn't even store it properly. So in 1976, like before all these things happened, people were already complaining. So as early as 1976, trade unions in Bhopal complained about pollution within the plant. A few years after, a worker accidentally inhaled a large amount of toxic phosgene gas, which led to his death within a few hours. Like, he died like 2 hours after that.
Oh, damn.
Exactly. When this happened, a journalist from the local paper wrote an article, and a direct quote from that literally said, "Wake up, people of Bhopal, you are on the edge of a volcano."
Boy, was he not wrong.
He was not wrong, girl. 2 years before this tragedy happened, around 45 workers were exposed to phosgene, and they were admitted to a hospital.
Oh, wow. That's a big number.
That is a big number. Like, all this shit just kept happening, and they were like, all right, next. Between 1983 and 1984, there were leaks of phosgene, carbon tetrachloride, and the methyl isocyanate. Also, monomethylamine. Like, these are all things that should not be leaking. They can kill you within hours.
Okay, so not only do they have these things within the facility, they also have leaks within the facility. So
yes,
they're doing illegal shit, and they're doing it recklessly.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. But there's so much outcry. Was there still, like, did we see no action from the authorities? 45 people in a hospital, you'd think, right?
That's what's so crazy about this whole thing. I checked high and low. Until this tragedy happened, there were no fines or anything. And a lot of the companies kind of like, where you have policies, but nobody admits it's a policy, just kind of the culture in the company is just to keep things really hush-hush. So, for example, after the Bhopal tragedy, they were interviewing employees, and one of them literally said, word for word, internal leaks never bothered us.
What the hell are internal leaks? Do they think, like, they just stay within the facility?
That's what I don't understand. Like, these are all, I guess, internal leaks. Like, workers are literally going to hospital. People are dying. And more workers that they interviewed in a news article said that the reasons for leaks were just rarely investigated. So I'm not even talking about authorities, like you said. In the company, when they would have these leaks, they rarely looked into what caused them. They were just like, oh, another leak happened, basically.
Damn, is this an industrial company, or is this like the New York PD?
I know. One of the biggest companies at the time. Like, they would just be like, oh, there's a leak, let's just plug the hole, or they just ignore it. That's pretty much what was going on. So Union Carbide India, that facility, it housed 68,000 liters of liquid methyl isocyanate.
68,000 liters of something that was not supposed to be there in the first place.
Exactly. If it was there, it was supposed to be pre-prepared and was supposed to be in small batches. They had 3 storage tanks. E610, E60, it doesn't matter what they're called. They had 3 storage tanks. Months before the tragedy, right, the MIC production was in progress, and it was like they stored it in these tanks, right? But no tank was supposed to be filled with more than 50% of its capacity. And the tanks were supposed to be pressurized with inert nitrogen gas to keep it stable. So eventually, one of the tanks lost the ability to contain nitrogen gas pressure. And then they couldn't pump the MIC out of that one.
Of course.
Guess what they did?
They just let it leak?
Yeah, they couldn't pump they couldn't pump MIC out of it, so they were just like, all right, I guess that tank isn't working now. That was it. They were just like, we'll just leave that one. It gets worse. According to their own company rules, each of the tanks could not be filled with more than 30 tons of liquid. But one of the tanks had 42 tons of liquid in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So because of that, this failure had Union Carbide India halt methyl isocyanate production in Bhopal, and they even shut the plant down for maintenance. And they shut it down that same year. By the way, this happened in the same year. Then they tried to make that defective tank that they had kind of given up on work again on December 1st, but the attempt failed. By that point, most of the safety systems for managing the MIC were malfunctioning. This was the day before.
What do you mean by they were malfunctioning?
So I'm going to say specifically what safety systems in a little bit, but basically they were not working. Like, there's no other way to say it. The safety systems, multiple, were not working the day before.
So we have no safety systems put in place now, essentially.
Yeah, they're just not working at this point.
So were the executives of the company notified of this not working?
I mean, they do not say. In fact, like, it was super suspicious. When they asked the managing director of the Indian company the next day, like after all this chaos, he refused to talk about the details of the accident or what happened to lead up to it. And then he said that the enforcement of safety regulations was the responsibility of the executives at the Bhopal plant. So he blamed like the supervisors there. And then when the New York Times here in America got hold of a spokesman at Union Carbide in Virginia, the headquarters, they said, any suggestion of the accidents causes a speculation, and emphasized that Union Carbide would not contribute to the speculation.
So they're just calling it speculation.
Yeah. This was after all this chaos. So even before this, like several months before the accident, the managers shut down a refrigeration unit that was designed to keep the methyl isocyanate cool and stop runaway chemical reactions. A lot was happening. And in fact, like, to tell you just how much these people kind of were like, when they found the initial leak of methyl isocyanate at 11:30 p.m. on December 2nd, a supervisor said that he was like, later when they asked him, he was like, it was a water leak, so he was just gonna deal with it only after his tea break.
That tea hit though, I mean, damn.
He was like, okay, we'll have some tea, guys, and we'll figure it out. It is almost midnight. I don't have time for this. That's basically his attitude. So now, like, that night, let's talk about the night that all this went down. So according to reports, water had entered the malfunctioning tank, right? The one that they didn't do anything about. Then they shut down the plant to fix. Then the day before, they were like, okay, let's try. It didn't work. And they were like, all right, we'll just circle back. So it had entered the malfunctioning tank, and the runaway chemical reaction had started at that point. And then according to several employees, like, they started to like kind of feel it. And so after 2 hours, a worker who was not trained to do this was asked by a supervisor. The guy was like a novice worker, by the way, to wash out the pipe because they thought it was clogged with sand. And this was in a tank that had not been properly sealed. Like, it was malfunctioning. It had not been properly sealed. The pipe was clogged. This guy didn't know what he was doing. And they were like, oh, just wash it out.
Okay.
So washing it out added water into a tank that already like was not working well, and then that exothermic reaction started to just run, you know what I mean? And there was nothing to stop the reaction because there were also contaminants in the tank. That's the problem. That's why they were trying to declog it, because stuff had gotten into the tank. And then high ambient temperatures because there was no cooling because the refrigeration unit was down. And there was like iron that was there because, get this, the tank was corroding as well. The pipes were corroding.
What? Did they not use stainless steel pipes or something?
They were non-stainless steel pipes.
In 1980s, didn't we have stainless pipes?
The funny thing is, compared to the plants in Virginia by the same company that produced the same products, these tanks were not the same. So like, they were not the same, which is, so the one in India was not stainless steel, but the one here, like, yeah. So finally, the pressure in the tank, the malfunctioning one, which was E610, was nominal at like 2 psi. Like, it was at 2 psi at 10:30. It reached 10 psi by 11. The pressure in the tank increased 5 times by the end of the night. By the end of this shit show, it was 5 times that. So a few minutes after the buildup, when leaking had begun around 11:30, like I told you, that's when they even were like, okay, I guess we should have somebody do something. And that's when that guy went to his boss, told him, okay, go declog the tank. According to someone who worked there called Shaquille, the supervisor, he said that a lot of instruments for reading pressure at the plant were unreliable. So they just assumed that the readings were wrong. They were like, there's no way that thing is at 10 psi. Fuck that. It's wrong. Basically.
What?
Yeah.
What? How do you not know what? A
pressure sensitive tank.
And if you think that is wrong, did they never think to replace it if they thought it's faulty? What? Okay,
I feel so bad for the people that suffered from this because not even a single person had to die. It's insane. So by 11:30, the reason that the supervisor was even like, okay, somebody go plug this thing, is because the workers in the plant were starting to feel some light effects from the MIC. They were feeling lightheaded and nauseous. They were like starting to have breathing issues. Yeah, the bosses were like, okay, guys, we're going to have this tea break. You guys go ahead and just look for this leak wherever it is so we can plug it like we did the other ones. So they were like, we'll deal with this after the tea break. They went to look for the leaks. Fine. Within 5 minutes after this tea break, like the tea break ended at 12:35. By 12:40, the reaction in tank E610 had reached a critical state. Like shit was popping off. The temperatures were off scale. They maxed out at like beyond 25 degrees Celsius. That's 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And the pressure in the tanks were at 40 psi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they were surprised by 10 psi.
Yeah, and they were already stressed by 10 psi. Like, these tanks were not designed to be even like 2 psi was like the max that they were supposed to handle. It was at 40. One employee said that he saw like the top of the tank crack. And this was another big thing in this case. The emergency relief valve burst open. And of course, like that was also supposed to be another fail-safe for the pressure. So once the emergency relief valve burst open, the pressure just continued to climb. It got all the way to 55 psi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, as it was getting to 55 psi, the atmospheric venting had already started because it automatically starts. So it was already pushing MIC out into the atmosphere. Like the community was already getting this MIC. And it's supposed to be prevented or at least mitigated by these 3 safety devices we talked about. So remember when I told you that 3 main safety systems had failed? Mm-hmm. Well, the refrigerating system that was meant to cool the tanks containing MIC, all the tanks, it was shut down in 1982. And then they removed the Freon in 1984.
So they just had no refrigeration method.
Yeah, nothing had been cooling them for 3 years. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How are they operating?
I don't understand. And because the MIC unit is supposed to stay below 11 degrees Celsius, when they took away refrigeration, the alarm kept going off. So you know what they did? Instead of putting refrigeration back, they just turned off the alarm that warns you the temperature is building.
Oh, I mean, of course, if you don't want to wear your seatbelt, you're just gonna, take out the sound thing as well.
Yeah. So then that's basically what it was. Yeah. So at that point, they didn't have any temperature sound warnings anymore. And then as far as the venting, the flare tower that was supposed to burn the MIC gas as it escaped had a connecting pipe, and they removed it for maintenance. And even that pipe that they removed for maintenance, it wasn't sized properly.
What?
So it wasn't sized for the capacity that it had. It was still sized for when they built the plant, expecting it to only receive small quantities and not make the stuff.
You're telling me if I design this thing in my transport class, I get points taken off, but you can do this shit in the workplace?
I think Tomadakis would have been like, just stand up. Leave, please.
Just leave, yeah. You're a disgrace to engineering. Get out.
Exactly. And then, I know I told you so many things went wrong, but I'm not done. The vent gas scrubber, you know how sometimes you have a scrub, so scrubbers will absorb materials basically using liquid, and it's just a way to remove air particles. They deactivated it and put it in standby mode just before this happened, which I don't understand, because the day before they found out that they had a problem with the tank, and then they were like, you know what? Let's put the scrubber on standby. Like, you need the scrubber. But they just didn't. And I guess the reason they put it on standby was because it had insufficient caustic soda and power to safely stop a leak of the magnitude produced. So they were just like, well, we're out of material. Let's just turn this shit off. That's where they were at.
Oh my God.
I thought I knew the story of Bhopal. If anybody had asked me, I'd be like, oh, this tank, the pressure wasn't right, the emergency valve released, nobody knew what to do, and people died. That's what I would have told them. I did not know all this.
No, I mean, I knew people messed up. I knew it was a real bad fuck up on the company's part. But I didn't know the impact, the magnitude of how bad it was. It was just one thing after another.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This plant just should not have been operating like this at all. So after they found these leaks, the break had ended. They were like, holy shit, what is happening? So the automatic safety systems, like we said, they weren't working. Operators were like, okay, we're going to try to move this methyl isocyanate in the problem tank to the spare tank as required. But the spare tank that they're supposed to have for emergencies was not empty because they had methyl isocyanate in it and nobody had bothered to keep it empty, which is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be empty after every emergency that you have.
Yeah, a spare by definition means something to use. Okay, you know what? Yeah.
So all this stuff happened within all these realizations dawned on them somehow, I guess, to the supervisors in 5 minutes. But the workers, they were the ones looking for leaks while they were like nauseous and having headaches. So by 12:40 a.m., 5 minutes after this super important tea break or whatever.
Listen, South Asians and their teas. You do not fuck with that, okay? South Asians are addicted to their tea. We did not have a Boston Tea Party. We did not have a Bhopal Tea Party. Maybe if we did.
Oh my God. So you would think at this point, right, they're like calling the police. They're calling emergency services, right? That's what you would think. Like, oh my God, this shit is going down. Wrong. That is not what happened. So at like 12:50, an employee was like, we need to sound the plant's alarm system. And they did. But here's something you should know about the alarm system. This alarm system that sounded on the night of the accident was similar or identical to those sounded for various purposes, including practice drills, about 20 times a week. So people just thought they were doing another practice drill. They didn't have a different alarm sound for a real emergency versus a drill.
Oh, wow. Of course they didn't. Listen, girl, they didn't have coolants. Do you think they were going to have alarm systems?
It was insane. And then, so they had two different types of alarms, right? One would sound in the plants, and a second would go to the exterior to let the people know. But the reason somebody had to go sound the alarm system personally was because they had decoupled one from the other in 1982. I do not know what happened in this plant in 1982. All I do know is that a lot of shit got turned off 3 years before this. I don't know why.
So today could happen, okay? Hey, if you want to achieve something, you got to work hard.
Yeah. So even though the people in the plant knew what was happening because they got their alarm, the people outside didn't get their alarm. That's why he had to go sound that, at this point, kind of useless alarm, to be perfectly honest. And then people were panicking. A lot of these people weren't trained for this shit. Nobody had trained them. So they were like, fuck it. And then they started to run. There were buses sitting outside on the plant grounds, which they were supposed to take these buses to pick up residents and run away with them. And the workers were like, fuck this. I'm not fucking dying today for this company. I am out, deuces. And because they knew that this part is so fucked up, because they knew that the MIC was going downwind into the city, they all ran upwind. So I have a question for you. In this situation, you're a worker. Your supervisor went to drink tea. He told you to find a leak. You feel like vomiting from MIC. You don't know what the fuck to do. You just saw the top of a tank crack. You know that half the shit in this plant doesn't work. Do you get in a bus and go save people in the town, or do you run?
That's it's one of those moral conundrums, right?
Yeah.
I think I would at least raise the other alarm that, alerts the public. Even if I'm not personally doing it, I would at least make sure that they're made aware. Right. Which I don't think any of them did that either, right?
That's what's so crazy about it. You know what I mean? Even after that guy was like, you know what? I'm going to go sound the alarm. That made zero difference. Because it was the same fucking thing. Right after it was sounded, they turned off the alarm because the company policy was to turn the alarm off as soon after it was sounded because they didn't want to alarm the public. It's an alarm.
It's meant to alarm the public.
Exactly. You know how the police found out? The police did not find out from the people at the factory or the company. No. A phone call, like a town inspector who was in a neighborhood called Chola, about 2 kilometers from where the plant was, called and said, like, residents of the neighborhood were complaining something is going on. So then the police called at 1:25 or sometime between 1:25 and 2:10 a.m. The police called the plant and they told them twice, everything is okay.
What?
Yeah, that's what they told them. But people kept calling and complaining. So the police called back a third time, like, what is going on? And then they said, we don't know what happened, sir.
Oh, then who does?
Nobody. And this is an exact quote. We don't know what happened, sir. At this point, they obviously knew, right? At 2 a.m., the leak from that tank E610, the MIC leak, it finally started to like peter out. 15 minutes later, they sounded the plant's public siren for an extended period of time.
So finally somebody got a conscience. Or we're just forced to, we don't know.
We don't know. Nobody knows, because if you guys were following, this whole thing started going left at 10 p.m.
You know what it sounds like?
What?
Do you know that TikTok format, which is nobody's gonna know? They're gonna know, dude. But how will they know?
That's exactly it. Because at 2:15, that's when they sounded an extended alarm, and most of the town was feeling it by then, you know what I mean? But that's when anybody else who wasn't sure what was going on, they heard it for a long time and they were like, oh my God, it's not a drill, it's a real alarm, because they had shut it off before. A few minutes after that long public siren was sounded, that's when an employee went to a police control room and told them of the leak. And that was the first point throughout that night. It was past 2 a.m. that anybody from the company had acknowledged that there was a leak at that plant. And then they also told them that the leak had been plugged.
So at no point did they do anything right.
No. Top to bottom, just shit show. And that is the story of what happened from beginning to end for this event. What happened? Like, what did this cause? A lot of shit. Obviously, it caused a lot. Of course. The first things to think about is that they were manufacturing 3 pesticides mainly. The 7, which was the main one, right? That carbonyl that I talked about. Tamic, which is a brand name or trade name for Aldicarb. And a formulation that combined carbonyl with gamma-hexachlorocyclohexane, which you don't have to know the whole thing, you just call it GHCH. And that is called Cevidol. It's like a stronger version of 7. So the thing is, throughout producing these 3 pesticides, for up to 15 years, literally from when the plant started running in 1970 till the day that this shit show happened in 1985, they had dumped process wastes, byproducts, solvents, waste from machinery, and polluted water from the process at dump sites inside and outside the plant. They just dumped them.
What else did you expect from them? Like, after this whole story, are you surprised?
Yeah, exactly. Another 350 tons of water had been kept in a leaking shed at the site.
So was anything in there that was not malfunctioning, leaking, or broken?
I just don't know. And I assume the people working there were probably local, right? So every day going to work at this place must have just been risking your life.
Well, actually, they were probably hiring workers that did not even know or were not even made aware of the risks associated to it.
Very good point. So till this day, a lot of the waste that we just talked about are still at the site. Like, they're still there, they're still polluting things. And a lot of these chemicals, like, they degrade slowly and they can remain in the environment for years. And another thing is, like, they can keep spreading until the site is properly remediated, which...
You know what? I'm not even going to ask it. We know it. Anyway, you say that it can stay in the environment for hundreds of years. How does that work? Like, how does it get into the water, soil, air?
Okay, so on the one hand, like, if we're talking about the products, and soil and water, like the carbonyl, it will break down pretty quick. It has a half-life of like 4 days in water, 16 days on surface soil. Even sunlight can break carbonyl down, so it's not going to be in the air for a long time. But the issue is, like, you do not need to be exposed to carbonyl for a long time for it to damage you. And the other thing is, carbonyl has a moderate solubility. So it will dissolve in water, but only to a certain extent. And if there's a ton of carbonyl, like, if it becomes the point where it doesn't take long for the water to become saturated with carbonyl. That's the thing. And because it doesn't completely dissolve, if you don't have enough water, it can just seep into the groundwater systems. And it doesn't sound like at these plants they had a lot of floor coverings. I mean, one place where they stored the water, the shed was leaking, and it was leaking into the ground. You know what I mean? Once it gets deep down in the soil where oxygen is absent, it breaks down even slower, and it can have a half-life of 72 days. This is soil in a community that's agrarian. Mm-hmm. They're planting their food there. That's literally absorbing it back. Aldicarb is oxidized by microorganisms. So that was the other one that I mentioned. And it oxidizes really quickly, and its half-life ranges from like a few days to 2 months, which is not great, but it's not super dangerous. But the problem with aldicarb is what it turns into when it degrades are sulfoxides and sulfone. And sulfoxides and sulfones, they're miscible, which means they can mix with water, but they're not soluble. So they will mix with your water and then sit in your water, and they will mix pretty well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, humans aside, it can also be good for the animals there, right?
Yeah, because wildlife was affected by aldicarb exposure after this. It's super toxic to mammals, birds, marine organisms, freshwater organisms. Now that I think about it, after listing all those things, it's super toxic to everything, and insects as well, because it's a pesticide. It's just all around toxic. And in fish, like in marine life, they don't die as quickly from it, but they do eventually. And the ones that tend to survive, they can store it like in their fatty tissue. So then people will eat that fish, which is not great. And the GHCH, that one is mainly toxic to humans. Like, it has carbaryl, so it's going to do similar things soil-wise, but its toxicity is really bad for your kidneys and your liver. It's also only partially soluble in water, so it contaminates groundwater super easy. So, like, they left the environment pretty fucked after this, for sure.
Of course they did.
Yeah. And since they didn't have like timely information exchange, I mean, I think we covered that. The city's hospitals were not prepared. They're like, what? There's 2 hospitals. There's one really big one and there's another one. They weren't prepared. And not just this. Initially, they did not know how to treat MIC. They had never heard of methyl isocyanate. They were like, what? These people were poisoned with who? They did not know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they didn't even, when they were first receiving people, the company did not let the hospitals know what these people were poisoned with.
Of course they didn't.
Yeah, people were just showing up at the hospital dying. People were just showing up. And just to give you an idea of how disastrous this was, for years to come, like for a few years after when they studied this, the stillbirth rate and the neonatal mortality rate in Bhopal increased up to 300 and 200% respectively. Like, the city ran out of cremation grounds in 1986. Like, yeah, of course, like, this is ridiculous. This was crazy, but it's also super sad. These people did not have to die like this.
Yeah.
So, like, it's something that just kept going. Like, even as of 2006, they found a report that, like, almost 560,000 people were injured by this accident. And they did a study that proved that the stuff from Union Carbide was toxic for your lungs, your kidney, your liver. It was just a lot. Not to mention, like, MIC can lead to like asthma-like effects, breathing problems. It's a cancer hazard. And it's been linked to like reproduction problems as well. So it was just a lot that happened. The story was so influential, though, that the New York Times did a 7-week inquiry into the disaster, and they interviewed over 100 people in between India and the U.S., everyone that they talked to. Some of the injured people from Bhopal attempted to litigate this issue against Union Carbide, and the U.S. lawsuits were dismissed because they were like, just go litigate this in India. It happened in India, litigate it there, which, wow. In 1989, the Indian Supreme Court approved a settlement against Union Carbide, and Union Carbide at the time accepted moral responsibility, and they said they'd pay $470 million to the Indian government to distribute. The figure was based on the disputed claim that only 3,000 people died. And as I've told you, there were way more people that died. And they said only 102,000 suffered permanent disabilities, which I don't even know how they got away with this much. And the funny thing is, to tell you there was a bullshit settlement, after it happened, shares of UCC rose $2 per share, basically 7% in value.
Oh, so people gained their trust. Stakeholders are like, they know how to get their way out of a shitty situation.
Exactly.
Damn.
You would think this would like destroy the company, right? It did not. They were like, wow, they only settled for that much. Fuck it. Sign me up. This company knows how to do it. So basically, they estimate that if they had paid what they were supposed to, based on U.S. defendants who were suing UCC, the US one. They paid $10 billion to U.S. defendants in another case about asbestos, about an asbestos plant. And the amount of people that died were not close to Bhopal.
That's why they opened a plant in India in the first place, Allah.
That is, oh my God, that's so sadly true. And the amount that they gave to the families of the victims was $2,200 each.
Of course.
Until recently, the last documented amount from 2001, said that even the little money they promised them, only $330 million had been paid. And in 2010, the victims and the government, they filed a petition with the Supreme Court of India asking them to reopen the settlement because they said they found evidence that there was a significantly greater number of victims and harm, which, duh. Right now, today, they're like a sixth of the size they used to be. And they did this by restructuring so that they could be like, we're just a small company. Like, bro, what do you want us to do? Damn. And in 2001, Dow Chemical purchased 100% of Union Carbide. 100%, which, damn, Dow, I did not expect that. And Dow Chemical said they set aside $2.2 billion to meet Union Carbide's asbestos liabilities in the U.S. However, they have refused to do anything about the liabilities in Bhopal or even admit they exist. They're like, what are you talking about? That was not us. What do you mean? Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did actually say that they weren't made aware of anything that was happening in India and the executives didn't know. So, that's their out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's been 32 years. Like, what are you going to do? And in addition to this litigation, now there's a criminal lawsuit against the CEO. And it's been ongoing in the Indian legal system since 1989. Like, not shit has been done. So I don't even know where the guy is. Like, it's a criminal lawsuit. Like, how can you just, I don't know. But in 2010, a court in India found a verdict saying that Union Carbide India and 7 executives of the company were guilty of criminal negligence. And they had to pay a fine of 500,000 rupees, which is just like $10,870.
That's it? That is nothing. Oh, God.
And they each got like 2 years in prison, and then they also had to pay $2,175 themselves individually.
Dollars, right?
Yeah, in dollars. So in August 2010, the Indian Central Bureau of Investigation, they filed a petition with the Supreme Court in India, and they were like, what the fuck, like, that's not a harsh enough sentence. What they did was horrible. And in May of 2011, the Supreme Court was like, nah, it wasn't that bad. So they just kind of rejected it. And since then, like, not much has changed. I hate to tell you guys. Like, how at the end of the Chernobyl episode, we're like, damn, shit improved. Things got better. Not here. The plant is still leaking, like we've established. Not just chemicals, but also heavy metals that are now in the local aquifers in this town, in their drinking water sources. In December of 2020, there was a protest because these people are demanding justice and they deserve justice. And as we know, we had a pandemic, right? That is hard for people with respiratory issues, which anybody who lived in Bhopal at the time or had kids will have, right? Mm-hmm. Dow Chemical said, not our problem. The one good thing, though, is that the Environmental Protection Act was passed in 1986 in India, and it created the Ministry of Environment and Forests. That's why we have it now. Another good thing that came out of it is it changed how companies now deal in India. Not like in a rush, but it kind of changed it. And it also led to them kind of limiting what you can produce as far as chemical companies. So that's kind of good. In fact, there have been more cases like this in India. This is not the only one. 3 million people per year suffer the consequences of pesticide poisoning in the developing world, and that's an estimate. In the state of Kerala, significant mortality and morbidity have been reported following exposure to endosulfan, which is another toxic pesticide. And they've been using it for 15 years, even after Bhopal.
Oh, well, of course. I'm not surprised. So, has this disaster led to any positive growth? Like, it does not seem much compared to the changes we saw from Chernobyl, which we discussed last week.
Unfortunately, like we said, not that many, but some good things that happened besides that Environmental Protection Act. This British company, ICI, whose Indian subsidiary manufactures pesticides, they faced more attention after the whole Bhopal thing, the subsidiary now spends 30 to 40% of their capital on environmental related projects in India.
That's good.
Yeah. But I guess like that has to be like a company thing. Like, fuck, we don't want people to think we suck like these guys. But like it's still not as strict as the parent company in the UK, which is the same thing we saw with Union Carbide in India.
Yep.
The US chemical giant DuPont, they learned their lesson a little harder because they wanted to, like for a decade, they were trying to export a nylon plant from Richmond, Virginia. What is with Virginia, bro? Anyway, they were trying to move it from Richmond to Goa, India. Initially, when they were like trying to negotiate this, DuPont had asked for and they won a clause where their investment agreement absolved them from all liabilities in the case of an accident. Like any.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but the people of Goa were like, fuck this. Hell no, we're not doing that. Because they basically cleared an ecological site for this company that they wanted to build. So after like almost a decade of protesting by Goa's residents, DuPont was like, all right, we can't build it here. Let's just forget about it. We can't keep dealing with these people and their protests. Then they were like, you know what, Goa, we're going to try somewhere else. They went to Chennai and they were going to put this plastic plant there. And the state government said, sure, but you have to be responsible for public health and environmental protection. And of course, DuPont was like, you know what? India, peace out. Like, you guys.
This is not why we come here.
Exactly. They were like, you want us to follow the law? Excuse you. So, yeah, this is the story of the greatest. It really is. When they say it's the world's worst industrial disaster, nobody's lying. It really is.
Well, do you think that we'll see a lot more regulations coming up now that, you know, we see more and more light that is being shed on the environmental impact of industrial waste?
If I'm going to keep it 100 with you, girl, I think we'll see them, or we'll see them being proposed at the next election, because that's when politicians do. No, but okay, so to be honest, like, yes, but not enough, not nearly enough, because right now, like, India's whole thing is their GDP is growing and it's very industry based right now. A lot of their GDP is shifting from being agrarian to industrial. And they need those pesticides for the agrarian parts they have left. So they're not like, yes, they're doing a lot of environmental work, but they're not really cracking down as much as they could, in my opinion. So I don't know. It's going to take a while.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to hold our breath and see where India's headed with this. What do you guys think? It's been almost 40 years. Do you guys think that the victims of this terrible incident got justice? Even if it was not monetarily justice, do you think that the culprits were held accountable? Do let us know on our social media. An organization to check out when it comes to industrial safety about what's happening in South Asia. The International Labour Organization works towards occupational and safety hazards in South Asia. In India, their activities are specifically in the area of occupational safety and health, and they have actually focused on supporting the efforts of the constituents in promoting national legislation, and they are trying to keep it updated in line with current international labor standards. Also, they're trying to get other interventions so that they can strengthen the capacity of workers and the employers' organizations. Also, their work focuses on compliance strategies and they focus more on monitoring and enforcement mechanisms so we do not see another Bhopal. Watch out for them, they're doing great stuff and at least highlighting things that need to be highlighted, if nothing else. And that is our show. Sorry, this episode ran a little longer, but as we guys continuously explained, this was a story that was really dear to both of us. We really wanted to expand on it, get on it, and really highlight the negligence of a few workers and the impact that it can have, not just on other humans, but also on the environment, on the wildlife. It's just overall a shit show. Next week, we will dive into the destruction of the Borneo forest and talk more about how greedy humans can really be. Do check out our website, planetpolicypals.com, for updates and show notes, as well as references on everything that we talked about today. Email us, leave us a voicemail, rate us, and review us. If you have any cool trivia about Chernobyl or any other environmental disaster that we caused, please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at Planet Policy Pal, Instagram at Planet Policy Pals, and like our Facebook page.
Also, thank you to all the people that have been messaging us, telling us they like the show on Facebook. We got a ton of your messages and likes, mostly from Nigeria and Pakistan. And thank you guys so much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, keep sending your love. And also check out our YouTube page if you need captions as you listen. Stay safe and dry. Until next time, keep learning, pals.